All right, Andrea, kick us off. We're
right,
glad
let's
to
start.
see so many of you back again, though. Exciting to see, I think, a couple of new, I'm not going to say faces because I can't see everyone's face, but we're happy to be back.
Yeah, really glad you guys are here. Thank you. So we get to do, there's only one more after this, so really glad you're here. Thank you for staying late with us. And we're going to talk about whole grains. I think this is one of my favorite classes. Wendy's like, thank you for, like teaching this one. And I said, I'm just really excited about whole grains. So it works out. All right, so next slide.
Mhm.
I think it's probably the equal opportunity slide. Yep, we got it. So we're an equal opportunity institution, which and then also just wanted to mention, any trade or brand names that we use are just for the purpose of information. So we don't endorse any product. Thank you. Okay, eating the Mediterranean way. Do you guys remember from last week? If you want, ooh, yeah, no. Okay, can you write it in the chat what you guys, if you remember any of the bubbles? So I won't repeat them this time. See if you guys can get them all. So it's like the key things to eating the Mediterranean way. And then remember, there's those three to the side. And if you haven't been here before, I realize this would be a challenge. So we welcome new people also. Okay, alternative proteins, good. Like what, for example? Can I ask that? Alternative proteins, what would it be? You guys got this. So the main aspects of eating the Mediterranean way. There's something.
Nuts.
Nuts. Yes. Thank you. Good
Is
job.
nuts one of them?
Yes, nuts and seeds. That's what we snack on. Good job. Thank you. Thank you. And then she's got, yes, seafood is one of them. Beans is one of them. Whole grains. That's what we're talking about today. So there's
Olive
a
oil.
key. Yes. Okay. Olive oil as your primary fat. Thank you. Thanks for unmuting.
All right, Katrina and Sandy are on a roll.
Does anyone else? Okay, fruits and vegetables. Yes, that's our first one. Wendy wanted to pull it up. She was like, I'm ready. I think, okay, so, and then what do you season with? And then remember, there's like some things on the side, like the key aspects other than food, or they are kind of food. One of them's not food. We don't have to do this all night, but.
Isn't it herbs and spices and trying to avoid the salt too much?
Trying to avoid, there's, yes, herbs and spices, and then good job on that salt. Okay, and then what is the other thing that you want to avoid? There's one that has an X over it, if anyone remembers that one. Oh, Carol, good job. Eat with other people. Yes, you got that. So that's one of the circles on the side. You guys remember any of the other ones? I remember something that you drink. Avoid sugar. Yes. Good job. So there's like a big X on the soda. So it's avoid added sugar, especially. That's our key one. And eating with other people, social eating. Okay, I see you guys. Both of you guys got that. You're good. And then, okay, so there's something to drink. And yeah, I think you can do most of them, Wendy. They got almost all of them except it's just wine. Yes. Okay. And so exercise and wine. So you guys remember that. You can work out with wine. And okay, so those are the things. And then if you don't drink, don't start. So that would just be a key thing on that. But all these things, so if someone's like asks you what the Mediterranean way is all about, these are the things that you would list that usually define the Mediterranean way. So it's not necessarily a flavor. Remember, it's kind of these basic foods and however you want to cook them. And then that lifestyle, which would be eating with others, enjoying your food, and then physical activity. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Good job, you guys. And then what sets it apart? It's simple with simple ingredients, delicious. We tried to show you that, and hopefully if you've cooked some of the recipes, you can agree. And then satisfying, because it is like those nuts and seeds, which that healthy fat keeps you satisfied. And then whole grains keep you more satisfied than refined grains, and the fruits and vegetables with the fiber also satisfy. So that's why some of the reasons why it's satisfying. Okay, next slide. And then how do you eat the Mediterranean way? So we have gone through all of these except we'll do it number 7 next week, which is fun because that's a fun one to talk about. But today we get to talk about whole grains. You guys know I'm excited, so get going. Go to the next slide. Okay, so making your grains whole. Okay, so the key is to make your grains whole. So there's choosing whole grains, such as like oatmeal, quinoa, brown rice, popcorn. Did you guys know popcorn is a whole grain? So that's really cool. Yes. So just, maybe putting olive oil on it instead of butter. And then when you're choosing bread and pasta, looking for the word whole in the first ingredient list. And we're going to talk about that more. Okay, the next slide. This is one of my favorites. It's kind of cool because it shows the carbohydrates, kind of the ones you want to eat more to the ones you want to eat less. So all the foods on these slides are carbohydrates. So if you have diabetes, any of these foods would raise your blood sugar. It's just that the ones on the right would raise your blood sugar faster, okay? And so they're harder on your body. And so we want to eat more of the ones on the left and try to do less of the ones on the right. So you can see fruits and vegetables, so they're carbs, and those would be awesome carbohydrates. So eating lots of those and beans throughout the day. And then eating unprocessed whole grains. So eating grains as grains. So sometimes I didn't even think about that, but when you, there's grains where you can actually tell they're grains, there's oat groats or quinoa or brown rice, and it's very, they're minimally processed, but then you kind of get more and more processed as you go to the right. So thinking about eating grains as grains instead of what the grains could be made into. Okay, so things like bulgur too and barley would be good examples. So then eating those, and then eating lightly processed whole grains without added sugar. So that would be like the pastas and oats, where they might be processed a little bit, but they don't have added sugar. And then we get a little bit further down, and then it's the foods made with whole grains. Excuse me. And then there would be, okay, so there's lightly processed whole grains, and then the foods made with whole grains without added sugar. And then we get to pasta with refined grains. So those would still be better for you. Then moving to the right even more would be the foods with refined grains. So those would be ones that they're not a whole grain anymore. So you always want to look for the ones towards the left. So it's a whole grain when it says whole in the ingredient list in the first ingredient. So that's one key to looking. And there's also other words, unfortunately, that can mean whole, so it doesn't make it really simple. But usually they'll put whole before it just because we know, people know they're looking for whole grains. So it'd be like whole corn or whole, did you ever think about corn as a grain? But it is, whole corn, whole wheat, whole rye. And then there's things like barley and buckwheat. And those are just like whole grains by themselves. Same with quinoa. If you see quinoa, that means it's a whole grain quinoa. Okay, and then just, with those things on the right side, like foods made with refined grains and pasta with refined grains, those would be key to adding fruits and vegetables and beans with those to try to, just make them even healthier. So like taking something like French bread, or white rice, and then you could move that more towards the left by eating fruits and vegetables with it. And then the foods and vegetables high in added sugar, those are the ones that you'd want to have at most a few times a week, and just trying to have less. You can, there's a lot of really delicious foods on the left side too. So next slide. And I don't know, has anyone, if you want to write in the chat, if you've seen these books before, sometimes people have, sometimes they haven't, but there's some claims that have come out. It just kind of, we seem to go in trends with different things that we kind of blame, and then try to show like maybe you shouldn't eat this, and then you can sell a book. But these things are some claims that these two books have made, and the books are popular sellers. So I just wanted to address them. So like they said, wheat today is different than decades past, and it triggers disease, and it causes abdominal fat, and wheat makes the brain not function properly. Okay, so that's important just that I address that, I feel like, because then if you've heard that, you'll understand where we're from, or what I'm, understand. Yeah, I think it's important to address, basically. Okay, so next slide. So the key things would be just then is what is really going on, that Americans were eating too many refined grains. So it's like, some of the books like would say that, the grains can make us large, but in America, we don't eat whole grains. And so they're kind of like in a different category, and they're a lot healthier for you than the refined grains. So almost 40% of the refined grains that Americans eat are from yeast bread, such as hamburger buns and pizza crust. But yeah, so that's what's really going on, is that United States, we eat a lot of refined grains. It's not the good whole grains. The next slide. So what you eat really matters. So it would be eating lots of refined grains is associated with increased body fat. So that's okay. So there we go. But eating at least 3 servings of whole grains a day is associated with decreased abdominal fat. So you see how not all carbs are created equal. And I think that's important, and that's something that those books dismiss, or they don't address that. So whole and refined grains are not the same when it comes to overweight and obesity and how our body reacts. So that's really important, and that's why we want to choose whole grains. And then next slide, this shows how many whole grains in America we usually eat a day. So the idea would be to try to make at least half of your grains whole grains. That's according to our guidelines in America for nutrition. But just as you can see here, this is how much we do, really. We only do a half of a piece, whereas we want to have at least 4 of those slices whole grains, and even more is better. So if you could do all your grains whole, that'd be great, but they're just saying, if we can at least try to make half, and this is how many we normally get. So you can see we're kind of weak on that. So hopefully you guys will be all-stars. But here are some examples of whole grains then. There's the whole wheat, whole corn. These are, if you see any of these words, they mean whole grain on the label. So if you see whole wheat, whole corn, popcorn, brown rice, all those things. And then what is a grain? It's kind of cool because you see like a picture of a grain. So it's a kernel there. So whether it's a kernel of rice, it could be a kernel of corn, but it has those 3 parts. So there's the bran, and that like protects the seed. And then there's the endosperm. And that was the part, it has a lot of carbohydrates and some protein. And then there's the germ. And that's, I don't know if anybody's heard of things like wheat germ, but it has a lot of vitamin E and good nutrients for your brain. Really, really good. So then just so happens the bran has a lot of that fiber, and the germ has a lot of vitamins. And they just happen to be the dark parts of the grain. So then when we wanted to make white bread, they had to go. And I think, we didn't really understand the importance and the value of those 2 parts. And so when we have white bread or refined grains like crackers and things like that, all we're left with is the endosperm. So we miss out on all that fiber. That's why refined grains usually have less fiber. They don't have a lot of the same nutrients. So that's why you want the whole grain. You want all 3 parts. Thanks, Wendy. You can go to the next slide. And then, like things to look for too, with multigrain, 100% wheat. You might see that bread. I think of it a lot, that honey wheat bread. And so you were like, oh, that's whole wheat, but when you look at it, there could be wheat, but is it whole wheat? All of it's made out of wheat, so you got to look for the whole wheat. So even if it says 100% wheat, you want to look for 100% whole wheat. So I would flip over that bread and look at the ingredients list and see if the word whole is in the first ingredient. If it's not, I would put it back on the shelf. So like made with whole grain, that can be good, but how far is it down in the ingredient list? You guys know, why are the ingredients listed in the order that they are? You guys remember? Like on the ingredient list, so there's a nutrition label and then the ingredients. Does anyone know why they're listed like in the order that they are? Yes, you got it, the most first. Yeah, good job, you guys. So it's like the most to the least. So if you're looking at the label and you see whole grain, you're like, made with whole grain, great. But then you look at the label and it's the very last thing, and it's like after salt. Good, yeah, thank you. Then it's probably not very much whole grain. So you can look at the ingredients then, and you want to look for whole in the first ingredient. Thank you. Okay, that's a good idea. And then, like trying to find something in your kitchen, like after this session can be really good, just to see, check out your rice and things like that. So eating more bulgur, brown rice, oatmeal, and less bread and crackers, etc. So trying to eat grains as grains which is one of the fun things I learned just teaching the class. You know, sometimes you don't think about that. So eating the grains as grains, less refined, yeah, and really good for you. Okay, and then there's a couple things. There's a North Carolina site about grocery store videos, and these are some options for you to look at, but I'm not going to talk much about that. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, so switching to whole grain products. So that would be what we want to do then. So we're going to explore the 3 categories of food, like oatmeal, pasta, and then rice and whole grains. So the first one is oatmeal. It's kind of cool because people ask a lot, you know, what's the difference between steel cut oats and oat oats and rolled thinner oats? So if you want to go to the next slide, has them all pictured, which is pretty cool. So this is the difference then. So the steel cut oats, they're oat oats, and then they have been cut into little pieces. So like the oat is what's grown in the field there, and then it's cut into little pieces, and it's the least processed of the oatmeal, and it takes about 30 to 40 minutes cooking time, so a little bit longer, and it's the recommended choice for a breakfast cereal because it keeps you full longer. So it's like the longer it stays in you, the more benefits it has. So you want to keep it around, right? And then so the next one would be the steamed and rolled flat old-fashioned oats. So they're those steel cut oats, and then what they do is they roll them flat. So that's kind of cool how they do that. But they're about 5-minute cooking time, and they're good for cooking and for breakfast cereal. And then when those old-fashioned oats are just cut into even more, or cut into smaller pieces, then they become quick cooking oats. So basically the cutting into smaller pieces helps you digest them faster and also them cook faster. So it's like if you want to keep them around longer, you'd want to choose the more whole when you can. And then there's instant oats, and those are the ones that are pre-cooked oatmeal. It's usually in those packets. It's been pre-cooked and then dried, and that's why you can just add some boiling water and rehydrate them. You don't have to cook them very long. So sometimes I think the long cooking time of the oat groats, you know, it kind of backs people away, but there's a good hack that we got for you. And so it's easy steel cut oats. So if you go to the next slide, it would be you take 4 cups of water, okay? 4 cups of water to 1 cup of steel cut oats. And so that would make 4 servings then. And if you need more or less, you can adjust the recipe, but it's 4 to 1, okay? So you bring that to a boil. So you put like 1 cup of the oats, 4 cups of water, and then you would take the pot off the heat, cover it, and you would put it in the refrigerator. And you leave the pot in the refrigerator overnight. And if you like, you can use a dishcloth or something, you know, just to keep on so it doesn't shock the refrigerator too much. Put that towel under the pan. But this can help you because then it'll be ready in the morning for you, and that you don't have to sit around and wait for it. And so that's just one way to do it. And I know, I know some people that use this method and really like it. So that could be a good idea. Then you can get those steel cut oat benefits. All right, so then we have kind of some fun things. Guess what we're making today? It's that one right there, banana oatmeal pancakes. And then if you go to the next slide, we want to, okay, so the flipping from one to the other, right? So normal pancakes, let's try using oatmeal instead of flour. And then Wendy's going to take it away from here. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited again to be talking about whole grains, because with whole grains comes the fiber, which keeps us full. All right, looking at this med flip. So one, it is to switch our pasta into a whole grain pasta, and we really want to bulk up our meals. Instead of like adding loads and loads of pasta, let's bulk it up with more of the veggie side of things. And there are so many whole grain products. Do you guys remember when like a lot of the whole wheat products and the whole grain products were coming out? I know everybody often said, oh, it tastes like this. What was that? Anybody remember? Or maybe it was just in my area. They often said it tasted like cardboard. Well, good news is there's so many different varieties and types of whole grain products now. I encourage you to definitely try them, because not only are they more filling than that refined grain, they're actually pretty delicious. And, Andrea was going over that whole grain oat and showing you the 3 different parts. And whole grains do tend to have a more of a dense flavor, a nutty flavor, depending upon what type of whole grain it is. But think of that when you are eating it, because I know it's an adjustment from that refined product, but think of it as you're getting all the good stuff, like you're getting those nutrients, you're getting the fiber and some of those other vitamins that Andrea was mentioning. All right, so let's check out the next flip. And for this one, we're going to take that white rice and we're going to make it a whole grain. So what are we going to use instead? You can either unmute or type it in the chat. Oh, definitely. You can, with the pasta, use that, bulk it up with the veggies, most definitely. But so instead of white rice, what would be the the whole grain that we want to use? How can we make that a whole grain?
The brown rice?
Brown rice, that's it. I mean, and with this one, you can add in those fruits and veggies. So you can see there's 3 different recipes from the Med Instead of Med's website that their recipe bank, that they've taken a whole grain and they've simply added in. Some have protein, some don't. And they're going to add in some of those extra fruits and veggies. So you have the chicken and vegetable fried rice. And with that, it's going to have the tons of rice with lots of veggies. And then you're going to move next to the curry quinoa salad. And this has got some beans in it. So there's some of your protein. You can see some almond slivers there. And it also has mango. And then finally, one of my favorites is the whole wheat couscous salad recipe. And so what this does is it takes that whole wheat couscous, adds in some fruits, nuts, and then also some fresh herbs. Hopefully everyone's had dinner because it's making me hungry. And so over the past several weeks, we've been talking a little bit about mindful eating, which is eating with awareness. And this is going to include what's on your plate, like being mindful of what's actually on your plate, and as well as your entire eating experience. So I want you to think about mindful eating as using all of your senses. You're being present. You're not scrolling or watching television. You're actually experiencing the meal that you've prepared. And one way to be mindful about your eating experience is also with reading nutrition facts labels, like you see this woman on the screen doing. And so it can help you not only with just identifying whether something's a whole grain or a refined grain. This practice can be used for most products across my plate. So like Andrea mentioned earlier about, you want to look, it can help you look for things that are low in added sugars, low in saturated fat. Maybe you're looking for fiber, but also those that are low in salt to be able to eat the Med way. And so reading food labels, this is one of the, to me, I feel like it's one of the biggest superpowers that you can have as a consumer, because again, it's going to help you with all sorts of grocery shopping, identifying the most helpful foods. And the Food and Drug Administration or the FDA, they do require certain things to be on our nutrition facts labels. And so there's some manufacturers that are such a small production that they are not required to have nutrition facts labels. But most of our products that we do consume or purchase from the grocery store, aside from produce, is going to have that nutrition facts label. And while it's really great to have access to this, it can sometimes be confusing if you've never used it before. So here's an example of the new nutrition facts label. This one came out in 2016 when FDA finalized it, but you really started to see it trickle in. They didn't require FDA to have, or all of our companies to have, the product updated with this new nutrition facts label. It started coming in a little bit more in pretty heavy in 2020, and then they had to have all their products with the new label by 2021. And again, this is a really fabulous tool for any consumer simply because it's going to help you make healthy decisions depending upon what you're looking for, whether it be reducing sodium or increasing fiber content. So here's an example. So this is what's different from the old label, and I'm not showing you the old label because this is what you should be seeing in your grocery store. So right at the top, you can see it's got our serving sizes are here. So this is telling you how many are in a package per container. So whatever that food or beverage is. And the serving size they're basing it off of is that 2/3 cup. And then you can see if you are watching calories, so it can give you the calorie amount here. And then, and we're going to go in a little bit more detail here in just a minute. And then you can see down at the bottom, you're going to see added sugars, which was new for our label, which is really great for us as consumers because you can see that total sugar, but you don't know how much is natural versus how much is added. But now you do, which is fantastic for us, again, as consumers. And now for the nutrients on the new label, you'll see if you had any old products in your cabinet that you might have seen, you'll see that those nutrients are a little bit different down at the bottom. And that's because they were nutrients of concern. So when the dietary guidelines for Americans come out, these might be adjusted depending upon what is accepted by the FDA. But nutrients of concern are the ones that we're not getting enough of in our diet for the general population. And so here you can see vitamin D and potassium are now required. And vitamin A and C were on the previous label, but they are not required, but some may choose to add them in. Also on the right-hand side of the label, right over here, you see the percent daily value. I'm going to give you guys a quick trick to use that to be able to make a healthier choice. And we'll go through that in just a second. And then another thing that was new, you can see down here at the bottom, there was a little footnote to be able to describe that the percent daily value is based off of a 2,000 calorie a day diet. So this is where I think it's great again for us as consumers, because previously, do you guys remember the old, like if you bought a 20-ounce soda or beverage, anybody recall how many servings were in that particular product? If you read that nutrition facts label, anybody want to take a guess? No brave souls? Oh, I can't hear you, Katrina. I don't know, Patricia, if you caught that or not.
I think there's a connectivity issue, Katrina. Your internet's not coming through very well.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, it was 2.5 servings in that. So now what the servings have been updated to reflect what people actually consume, whether that's food or drink. So if you look at the ice cream, so if we bought a pint of ice cream,
That was like 2 to 3 years.
yeah, it was 2.5. You got it. Yep, you got it. So, and we're going to come back to that. So if you look at the ice cream, so previously it was around 4 servings, 200 calories a serving. But what they were finding is that, you know what, we're not getting 4 servings out of a pint. Most of us are going to have a little bit more than that serving size. So now this new serving size is about 3 per pint, which is a little bit more realistic for what folks consume. All right. And then if you move on to the soda, the 12-ounce is going to be, and also the 20-ounce. So they're going to be, both of them are going to say 1 serving. But what do consumers typically drink? So packaging really does make a big impact on what consumers actually consume. And so if you purchase a 12-ounce bottle, it's likely that you're going to drink that entire 12-ounce bottle. And the same thing holds true for the 20-ounce. So that's where it's been really great for us to be able to compare different types of products, which we'll look at. So highlighted in the bluish color, you can see that the serving size, and this is where the servings per container are. It's going to tell you how many, whatever it is in this, whatever the 2/3 cup is, you're going to have 8 2/3 servings in that particular product. And this is standardized to be able to help us like look at different foods and compare to each other. So let's say let's say this is dried cereal. And if we pick up another dried cereal, it's likely going to be in similar serving sizes. So typically you're going to say about 1 cup or a half a cup. So it makes it a little bit easier to compare. Same thing is true. So if we have, let's say, crackers, it's going to say, okay, this is measured in 6 crackers for 1 serving. And then you can pick up another box of crackers and be able to compare those nutrition facts labels a little bit easier. The next portion is the calories. And again, this is for 1 serving of food. So if we were to double the 2/3 cup, that's going to give us about 1 1/3 cups. So what does that mean for our calories? It means that they're going to double also. So it's going to be 460 calories. So the same thing is true, is that more servings you take in, then you multiply the nutrients as well as the calories by that number of servings. Then if you see there's 2 colors here, I want you to focus on the yellow right now. So the yellow sections these are the ones, nutrients that we want to limit. So the one that's listed first on the label are the nutrients that we typically eat in adequate amounts, but we probably eat a little too much. So that's that same thing we've been talking about, the sodium, the saturated fat, trans fats, cholesterol, sodium, again, I mentioned, and added sugars. So we want to limit those. Then in the brown, you see total carbohydrates. And this is where you find the dietary fiber and sugar. And this way you can, again, pick up those 2 products. If you are buying crackers, just for an easy example, you can pick 2 up. Well, which one's got more fiber if you're really trying to stay satisfied and stay full and to reap those benefits of fiber. Now in the blue section, there's that get enough dietary fiber. So we need to get adequate dietary fiber, vitamin D, the calcium, iron, and potassium that you see at the bottom of the label. And we want to get enough of these nutrients so we can improve our health, help reduce risk for some of the diseases. So next up, we've got percent daily value. Now, this is a cool tool, if I do say so myself. I can't claim it. I didn't make it up. But again, percent daily value is going to be based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Typically, I would say most of us are not quite up to that for the recommended amounts. However, this is a great way for you to use that percent daily value when you are shopping. So if your item shows that it is 5% or less, so similar to this up here with the saturated fat, if it's 5% or less, that's going to be considered a low source of that nutrient. Okay, so 5% or less is a low source of that nutrient. Now, if it is 20% or more, which we have a great example right there with the added sugars, 20% or more, then that's considered a high source of that nutrient. So again, so if we looked at the daily value for, let's say, calcium that's on the label, what is the amount it's showing? So it's a 20%. So is that considered a low source or a high source of calcium? All right, jump in the chat. You got it. So that'd be considered a high source. You got it. So if you ate 2 servings of this food, then we need to double that percentage, right? For our daily intake of that calcium. Let me throw one more out there. What about, let's go with iron. Iron showing us a certain percentage. Is it a low or high source? All right, you're on a roll, you guys. Excellent. So that one's going to be considered a high source. Now, when you get one that's in the middle, Okay, you've got, okay, 14%, let's just say. It's really closer to that 20%. So we know that that's going to be a potentially high source, or close to being a higher source. Could you find something better? Perhaps, but that's where you come in and compare labels. Next up is we've got that footnote that I mentioned. Again, it's not going to change from product to product. It's just showing you that it's based off of that 2,000 calorie diet. If you didn't attend last week's session on eating healthy on a budget, definitely check that out. We talked a little bit about USDA's My Plate, which can give you some extra insight on the different food groups and making healthy choices. All right, so I feel like you guys have got this. So I'm thinking here's 2 nutrition facts labels. Let's compare them. And these are the old labels, so you do get a quick glimpse of what they look like. But all of the, and basically what we're going to be doing is just kind of getting the feel of how to review a label. So the product on the left is our whole milk, and the product on the right is our fat-free milk or skim milk. And if you notice, the skim milk is going to have fewer calories, less saturated fat. However, that fat's really not, it's not going to impact our calcium. So our calcium is equivalent on these 2 labels. Anything else that you might notice between the 2 labels? They've got similar protein or same protein. Okay, calories from fat, sure. So if you notice, our fat-free milk does have a slight increase in our sodium content. But if you come over to the daily value at 5%, is that a low source or a high source? That one's going to be a low source. So again, what you're consuming, if you're just going, you're reducing that saturated fat by choosing a lower fat option of milk. Again, that's going to give you the calcium that we need to get from our dairy products. All right, so let's take a look at the ingredients now. And so Andrea did a really good job, and you guys hit the nail on the head. This really does help with identifying first if a food is a whole grain. So those labels can be very tricky. So be aware, look for that 100% whole wheat or whole grain, whatever, whole grain, and insert the name of it there, whatever type of grain it is. But it can really help us find those healthier options. And you guys hit it on again, you guys got it. So that first ingredient listed is what's going to be found most in that particular product. It's going to have the most weight in that particular food or whatever it may be. So let's say you pick up a can of chunky chicken soup. Oh, that just sounds delicious. However, you turn it over and you're checking out the nutrition facts label and you see that chicken is the last ingredient. It makes you wonder what else is in that, what's in that chunky soup. So I probably would look for a different option, especially if chicken was the last ingredient. All right, so here's that bread, those 2 labels that she shared earlier. Here we've got the 2 labels, again, 100% whole wheat. And when you see wheat bread, in small writing, it says enriched bread. So that means some of those nutrients were added back in, but it's not 100% whole wheat. So again, use those labels, be wary. You're looking for that whole wheat and whatever the grain may be. So this is telling us that enriched, that they stripped some of those delicious parts of the grain that have all the nutrients, some of the fiber, and they're adding some of them back in. And just because something is a brown in color, like the bread is brown in color, don't get tricked. Check your ingredient label. And another thing, which is super helpful, if you're looking into your foods and you're trying to reduce sugar, if you look at this ingredient label, first, there's a lot of stuff in it. And then you can see that sugar is hidden and broken down into different ingredients. So it can appear that it's not found most in that product. So in just this one particular product, you can see they're not grouped together, but what does sugar, molasses, and corn syrup have in common? They're all sugar. It's a form of sugar. So again, in this ingredient label, it's listed 4 times. So again, the front of the package can be deceiving. And this particular product, it talks about fiber. And also it says that it is made with whole grain. It's made with it, but how much? So looking at that ingredient label, what's listed first? Ooh, okay, we're looking at sugar for our first ingredient. We do have a whole grain yellow corn flour, okay, but sugar is found most in that particular product. So it does, this example is showing us it's got 2 grams of fiber. It has 1 gram of protein, which we haven't really talked too much about, but on this label, it doesn't tell us what's added sugars, but I would bet based on sugar being the first ingredient, it's all going to be pretty much added. So there are some regulated terms that we have on labels that you can be confident in, that you can use to help choose a healthier option. So fat-free. So this particular claim is going to be less than 0.5 grams per serving. So that's less than, or the 0.5 grams of fat per serving than our original product. So, sorry, fat-free is 0.5 grams of fat per serving. Then we get into low fat. That one's going to be the 3 grams of fat or less per serving. And then we move to light. Now, this is where the original product is important. So here we have light or light, and this one's going to be 50% less fat or 1/3 fewer calories than the original product. So make sure you check the original product, or better yet, just turn that can or whatever it may be and read the nutrition facts label as well as the ingredients. And the same thing with the reduced fat. So anything that's reduced fat, you know, it's going to be 25% less fat than the original product. And of course, we always want to say, go on to medinsteadofmeds.com because they have quite a few videos. They've got great recipes that you can check out. And a lot of you have already started preparing some of those. We have tried some olive oil toast. So if you missed it, I might have burnt it on screen. So be sure to go back and check it out. But it is delicious. And it does make a big difference. So that's one thing I didn't mention that day, is that it does make a difference if you just toast your bread and then add olive oil. It's a different flavor. So definitely add the olive oil in the pan. And I love this as another grain that you can choose, adding some fruits, what we're going to make today. And I'm just going to go ahead and zip through some of these others that you can check out on the Med Instead of Meds website. A nice whole grain tortilla with lots of veggies. And I'm going to turn it back over to Andrea now. I'm going to go ahead and stop share so we can get her on the screen to make some banana oatmeal pancakes.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? It's really raining here. So, okay. Good, you guys. All right. Running around. I'm just turning on burner. This is going to be one of the quickest things ever. Hopefully. I've been mashing the banana while we've been learning about nutrition labels. So this is a big banana. So I divided the recipe in half because Wendy's my other half and she's not here. So it's just me. Me and the pancakes, which I'm actually really excited about, but she doesn't know. Okay, so I got one big banana, and then I'm gonna take 1 egg. So if you want to make more, you just do 2 bananas, 2 eggs, which is what the recipe calls for. Let me get the crack the egg. Okay. Egg is in. Then I'm going to. I had all that time
I was
to
so
work.
waiting for your hack on the egg.
My
Oh, but that was separating the egg, wasn't
the
it?
separating. I was actually gonna bring that up, Wendy, but I was like, that did not work for me. Then of course. Okay, so I'm mixing this in. You guys are wondering how this is gonna work. So there's actually 2 ingredient pancakes. Have you guys ever made those? It just takes banana and egg. So you could actually do it like this. They're pretty sweet. But I am adding a little bit of vanilla. Right. And then about that same amount of cinnamon. I like extra cinnamon. And then oats. Okay, so I'm doing a 1/4. So if you do 2 bananas, you do a 1/2. And then as you can see, you got the old fashioned. You know, it's not steel cut. It's the next line down. And you can see whole grain rolled oats. So we got the whole grain right there. So mixing this together. Pan is hot. Okay. Got 1 more ingredient to go in. And that is a small amount of baking powder. It's amazing how a little bit can help, right? But if it can be a little bit fluffier, I'm going with it. All right, we got a pretty good amount there. See? All right, putting this on the pan. I don't know.
How
Do you
big
want
of
the
a
spot piece it?
how big of a dollop do you use?
I use
You
about.
eyeball it?
I do. And you guys can make shapes and hearts and things like that too. But I didn't do that, so I'm sorry. All right. So you can see I got 3 big ones here. It's really fun. You can make cars with it too. I have no idea why I didn't do
That's
any of
funny.
those. You guys are with me, right?
I remember when I was younger, my I think my mom made like the Mickey Mouse because that was pretty simple just to do the, the 2 ears and whatnot. So
Definitely. Can you kind of see? Yeah, here they are. So then you can imagine if you were to double the recipe, you would have another 3. And then I have, my mom, I don't know, Wendy, what you grew up with, but just, you guys will have to tell me your favorite topping for pancakes. When I grew up, like my parents, so they, sure, syrup is delicious, right? But if you can get some more fruit in you anyway, that would be great. And my parents just happened to say we could have 1 with syrup and then the rest we got with applesauce. And so I kind of grew up like that. And it's actually really good, applesauce on pancakes. So yeah, try. It is like pureed fruit. So I have some no sugar added, strawberry peach applesauce. So I'm excited when they're done. I'm going to put that on. Otherwise, it's really good. I've done yogurt and blueberries. So I was just going to hear, like, do you guys have any toppings that you consider? Oh, peanut butter and banana is also good on top. But does anyone have any good ideas, like what they like to put on there? Because we know there's syrup, right? So,
yeah, Patricia said mashed berries all the way. That's
I
good.
just wrote an article about blueberries because July is National Blueberry Month, and I'm just trying to think of ways other than breakfast to use blueberries. And there are so many, but one of them was like just mashing the blueberries and then using them as a peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah.
Really,
That makes sense.
Also blueberry ketchup, so they put it in ketchup and barbecue sauce. And there was blueberry provolone stuffed chicken. So,
ooh, that sounds delicious.
Okay. And does anybody have any questions? They're heating up.
I know you can't rush pancakes ever. And so just kind of to recap the ingredients, you had your oatmeal, your vanilla, a little, was it baking powder?
Baking powder, yes.
And a little cinnamon,
Yep, not hand sanitizer.
and oh, that was vanilla. And did you use a vanilla? Oh, is that a vanilla bean or cinnamon?
Nope, it's we got cinnamon here, and then I have pure
Okay.
vanilla extract. But the
Mhm.
label, it got some vanilla on it, so it doesn't look that pretty. So I turn it the other way.
I bet you most of us, our vanilla looks like that in our cabinets.
It's like the real life thing. Okay, so they're
Yeah, but
starting to
it
get.
does go a long way. What is the temperature that you put it on, like a medium high or a medium?
Yes, I have it on medium, and then I turn it up to medium high when I realize that we're done now, and they're still cooking. So we'll
Yeah.
see if they become
So
a little bit like your toast.
no, it's gonna go great. So typically, I know, I don't know if you guys, where you have the little bubbles on the top and it starts to get a little brown on the edges. And then again, I love the idea of even topping this with a little bit of yogurt. Particularly if, let's say, if you didn't want to use the Greek yogurt because it is thick, a thicker substance, you could always do just you could either thin it out with adding fruits, the mashed berries, just to get a little more protein. Of course, you know, there is always good old-fashioned syrup. So any questions on whole grains? Again, Andrea and I both thank you for being here tonight. I know it's holiday week, but we're excited that you're here. And most importantly, we hope you take one of these recipes. How awesome could you take these pancakes? Go ahead and add in some strawberries and blueberries, and then you've got a very festive Independence Day pancakes that are whole grains.
Right.
So, and if no questions, we hope to see you next week for the last session. Ooh, and it's on sweets is the topic. I don't want to totally give it away. Of course, it's already on the website, but check it out. And we hope to see you back then. So, Patricia, any questions we missed?
No, I don't see any questions. I'm trying to pull the link for the registration for next week.
Oh, good.
Give me
Awesome. Thank you.
1 second. I'll drop it in the chat. Also, for anybody that missed the
Thanks, Sandy.
previous webinars.
Yeah, me too, Carol. And next week we have Rebecca Elliott that will be presenting, as well as Melanie Taylor. So one extension faculty, county faculty from Bay County, and one from Marion County. So we'll be excited to have two new folks that haven't been presenting in this session so far. So with that, we hope you all have an incredible holiday week. We hope to see some whole grains on the table with some bright, colorful fruits and veggies, and stay safe. Enjoy the holiday, wear your sunscreen, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks. Thank you guys so much.